So welcome to the Courageous Nerd YouTube channel. My name is Connor. I'm joined today by Navia Robinson. Navia, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Yeah, very sunny over here in the UK. It's not something we can say very often, so good news all round at the moment.
It's funny, Oscar from Gotham Knights, he's from England. Him and his best friend were visiting LA. Like I want to say they were here for 10 days about like 3 days ago. And it was like the one of the most gray set of days in LA. And it was sunny back home in England, which
hmm.
is so ironic.
Yeah, no, I think famously we're kind of a nation of bad weather. So like, if you're looking to like have like sunny weather, nice weather all the time, we're not the country to go to. I mean, we offer plenty of other things, but not that. That's not really our bag, unfortunately. But,
Yeah, no fair. And they came to LA anticipating sun, and then
mm, yeah.
it's just so funny that it worked out that way.
Yeah, well, I suppose obviously to kind of kick this off, obviously, I don't know if you prefer the term actor or actress, but obviously, you're a professional in that industry, shall we say? So I suppose like, how did your journey first start in that industry?
Yeah, I don't mind either. I think I haven't really considered it until recently. That's
Mm,
a good point though. I started when I was around 4 or 5 years old. I was very young. Um, the story goes as this. I don't remember this, but this is what my mom has told me because I was so young. But I went to a preschool with this kid whose parents were, I think they were involved in the music industry or in entertainment in some way. And I went to this kid's birthday party.
mm,
And at that birthday party, his parents just took a notice to me just kind of being a lot, I guess. I don't even know what I was doing. I guess I was just very expressive and they told my mom or asked her had they ever considered putting me in acting classes or theater or something like that. And she said no, but that I'd brought it up before, which I do remember. I used to like do little showcases in my living room for my parents. I
mm.
I we had this like roll of really large, it almost looked like a toilet paper roll, but it wasn't. It was just like really large paper, and I would like roll it out and like make it a runway, and I would do performances and dancing and like and emulate like lines from TV. So my mom took that as a clue and took this person asking her as a hint, and then like found a performing arts school and put me in classes. At first they were just weekend classes, and then I got older and I went to like summer classes or like classes that were weeks long, kind of like in intensives. And that's how I started. I got an agent through there, and I started auditioning very young.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely. And obviously, jumping ahead in time, I guess, to your very recent work, obviously, you mentioned Gotham Knights. And I found, obviously, it's not completely, but I find a lot of actors kind of cast in, DC, Marvel things. Normally, they say that they're like super not familiar with the source materials. Like, was that similar for you? Like, did you know much about the character you'd be playing or about DC Comics?
I didn't know much about the character that I'd be playing, but I knew the exact comic from which she was from. I mean, the Frank Miller Dark Knight comics are some of
Mm,
the most popular of all
mm.
time. And my family is a really big comic book kind of obsessed family. So I was familiar with the world. I think my favorite interpretations of DC comics were usually like the animated series. So
Okay.
I really loved Young Justice.
Mhm,
Like I
mhm.
really loved that show. And I mean, just so many like older Justice League movies. When I was younger, we would take like road trips from Georgia to South Carolina, which is where I was born. And I would always just beg that we watched like I think what they called Justice League Unlimited. I think that's what they were called.
That rings a bell,
So
yeah.
yes, yeah. So I was familiar.
Mm. For sure, yeah, and obviously, this being in the Batman universe, plenty of stories told there. So many different ways that story's been told. But like, what do you think made your show different? Or to some people just kind of going, "Oh, it's another Batman thing." Just quite.
Right. That's a good question. I mean, I think it has a gloss or kind of an overtone that I haven't seen ever in the Batman universe. I mean,
Hmm.
ultimately you're dealing with these very young characters and and it's heavily focused too on their dynamics and relationships that form, and so it's inherently not like any other
Hmm.
DC show in that way because it's like kind of it's like half teen drama, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a very very different thing. So I think that sets it apart, but then also just like I think it's much more vibrant than other interpretations of Gotham I've seen.
Yeah, yeah.
Much more playful, maybe. I think it is sort of a campy show,
Mm.
and I mean that in a good way. I think it can strike a good balance. So that's what makes it different.
Yeah, oh, for sure, and obviously the mix, you kind of, the CW. I think when you think of that network, there's kind of a. I mean, even though different shows, different themes, there's like a mold almost, and kind of putting that mold with something like the Batman universe, and then maybe your show is kind of a bit of a an after result of that, kind of those two things coming together, and yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah, so and I suppose like when you first were kind of reading the scripts for this, like how did we kind of I don't know how to really put this, but so like when you were first reading the scripts and kind of getting to know the character of Carrie, like did you kind of have an idea of where the character was going at the time, or like did it surprise you, or were you kind of yeah, did you kind of get it early on and you were right, that kind of thing?
That's a really good question. When I was auditioning, I think we were given the pilot a little later in the audition series. So
Mm,
Carrie doesn't appear much in the pilot. So actually, her entire arc was sort of a mystery to me, and I think they were still working it out when I was auditioning. So there were only so many questions and so much information I was able to get. Um, Obviously, I knew that she'd eventually kind of be introduced as Rob, or she'd introduce herself as Robin,
yeah,
which she
yeah.
does in the pilot already, but I knew that she would eventually join that group of like, vigilantes,
Mm,
and that there would be like a push and a pull as to how much control she was willing to give away, and like how she um was more capable maybe than the rest of them, but the others were more mature and more
mm,
um so I knew there would be things like that. I actually think I was told initially that, or at least the writers were very excited about what my dynamic would be like with Stephanie.
mm,
And then just through the way the series worked out, I actually ended up working most one-on-one with Duella, with Olivia, who plays
yeah.
Duella. So that was a big surprise, and I would have loved to work with Anna Moore, who plays Stephanie, but I
Mm.
so love the dynamic that happened between Carrie and Duella. I think it's so fun, and that was probably the most pleasant surprise to come from the show for me.
Yeah, I'm remembering something, and I can't remember who said it, unfortunately, but it was someone in a similar position where they'd played some iconic comic book character, and their kind of thing was like, years from now, after I've passed away, and they're kind of listing the people who've played this character, like, I'll always be on that list. That you can't kind of take that away, kind of thing. Like, was that something that you thought about? And obviously, like going forward, listing anyone who's ever played Robin, and you're on that list.
That's a really good point. I actually don't think I've ever thought about it in that way,
Mm,
ever. So this is kind
mm,
of it's a little bit of a revelation for me.
mm,
Yeah, I guess I have spoken about being like skeptical before, or just kind of nervous and intimidated by it because it's a very different version of Robin, and that scared me. I know how that can be received. In fact, when I was first researching Carrie Kelley after getting the role,
yeah.
um, I Google just put it into YouTube, Carrie Kelley, and one of the first videos that showed up was like a picture of my face that said Gotham Knights will be a woke disaster, and that was like a
Mm,
big realization that after that point I would just kind of stay away from the internet completely when it came to
right.
researching the character, and even knowing how the show did, I'm like so oblivious to all of it because I wanted to stay away from it, which I think maybe helped me develop a stronger character because then I was less influenced by other people's opinions or um so anyway, I guess I haven't really considered it in that way that I will now be on that list, but I that makes me happy, and
Mm,
I'm proud to be on it with some other obviously very amazing actors who've played the character before.
absolutely. And obviously, we've mentioned the fact that the show being on the CW, and I think definitely one kind of strength going into it, you had Misha Collins, obviously no stranger to the CW, a very long stint on Supernatural. He was Castiel for anyone who might not be putting that together straight away. But I suppose kind of having him on board, like obviously not only his experience on a show, but also like on the CW as a network, like, was he helpful to the rest of the cast in that way?
Yeah, like absolutely. He's so He's so cool. We didn't have any scenes together, so we didn't really work together, but obviously
Mm,
we would see each other on set as you do.
yeah.
And he never had like specific words of advice because he was just a little too like egoless and
Mm,
cool for that.
mm,
But also like our viewership definitely, I mean, he pulled
yeah.
most viewership.
Mm.
And yeah, it's his Instagram post that kept all of us so excited about the show, I think. So yeah, he's such an asset.
For sure. And I know kind of again, well, kind of going back a little bit in terms of your career, this isn't your first time joining like a franchise, so to speak. I know you did Raven's Home for Disney, for a couple of years. And so again, like, even though very similar, or sorry, very different, I should say, kind of themes in those shows, did kind of having the experience of joining a pre-existing thing kind of serve you well with Gotham
Yeah,
Knights?
that's a really good question and a good point. Yeah, I mean, it was something that already had its own fan base. You are coming into a world, and both things are similar in that they require a certain amount of respect, and you want to tread lightly, but not too lightly to where you're not creating a character that you stand by. So yeah, they are similar in that way. And then they are both formula shows, very different ones, but
Mm,
Raven's Home was a sitcom with a lot of structure, and so you have to figure out how to work within it. And Gotham
mm,
Knights was a show with a network drama with a lot of structure, so you have to figure out how to work within it.
yeah.
And then I think what I learned from Raven's Home is I didn't there were definitely times where I just didn't take it as seriously as I should have as an actor because it was a sitcom. I was like, yeah, this is fine, I got it. But
Yeah.
I think I learned from that you want to treat everything with as much respect and seriousness as you would the next. So
Mm,
going into Gotham Knights, I think that was important to me to just like you want to treat everything like it's um Hamlet. I that's
right.
kind of a joke, but
Yeah.
the idea is just to like be super respectful of the material.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, for sure. And I don't know this for certain, just based off the fact it being kind of a multi-camera sitcom, but was Raven's Home live audience or like at all?
Yeah.
It was, yeah,
It
okay.
it was not every week. It kind of went on and off, and then towards the end of my run on it,
Mm,
COVID struck, so there weren't any live audiences, but
right.
there were some. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a whole different like skill set in and of itself. And again, obviously, never done it personally, but would that be kind of comparable to say something like theatre, kind of having the live feedback? So
That's a that's a really good, yeah, point of reference. I think at its best, it is kind of like theater. Um, I was so overwhelmed by the experience first. I actually started in theater, so I knew what that was like, but the first live audience taping was our first episode, and
mm,
I broke down. I like started crying. I was so overwhelmed. I mean, I was 11 years old,
right,
and
fair enough.
yeah, yeah. And you're getting notes from the director real time, notes from the producer, suggestion from the writer, and then there's a live audience watching you. And while they can't hear the exact conversations being had, they are seeing you. And I just felt so exposed. So like ran behind a set and like had to bawl.
Mm.
Which is to say,
Yeah, yeah.
it is a very specific and kind of strange thing. With theater, I think there's a little bit more removal from the audience. I mean, the live audience on a sitcom, they are right there. They're yard like maybe 2 yards away from you.
Mm.
Whereas with theater, there's a little bit more of a separation. Like the lights make it so you can't even see the people in the audience. Um, yeah, that was a long, rambly answer. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, no worries. And I guess also, like, kudos, because I'm sure there's probably grown adults going into that situation for the first time who would struggle, but to be an 11-year-old child and doing it, I mean, again, I haven't done it, so I can't really speak from experience, but it sounds very difficult. And yeah, I mean, being a kid, I'm sure that must have been
Thanks.
very challenging. Yeah.
I appreciate that's really sweet. I think I'm just now realizing that it was.
Oh, for sure. I suppose, like, are there any other upcoming projects you have, in the works?
Yeah, I just did a film called Control Alt Delete, and it's my first film,
Mm,
first official one at least. So that's exciting. It's an independent film about it's a pretty heavy plot, but it's kind of explores the way a very sensitive subject is depicted in media. It's a movie kind of about a movie. And
mm,
I'm really excited about it. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep on
Mm,
auditioning.
great. Is that the release date for that? Is that out yet, or is that still under wraps?
It is not. I
Okay.
we just finished filming, so I'm not sure. Probably sometime like next fall, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose then, best of luck
Thank you.
with that film, with everything going forward. Thank you for taking the time to chat today, and yeah, all the best, and take care.
Thank you, Connor. So enjoyed it. This was really fun.